האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
Erev Tov and good evening, everyone. We are doing a special session in the Zera Shimshon on Inyane Purim in preparation for Purim. And the Zera Shimshon would like to dedicate this evening's learning for Refuah Shlema for two names, David ben Esther Malka, that's from David Cohn, the great posek and great Rosh Yeshiva, and also a baby who is undergoing heart surgery, Basha Rachel Bas Rus. So please have those two names in mind for tonight's learning. And the Zera Shimshon has a section on Megillas Esther. We're going to look at Os Tes. We're actually going to do two pieces, God willing, but the first one is Os Tes, section number 9. And in preparation for doing this piece, we're going to take a look at 3 psukim because the Zera Shimshon is going to start with the discussion of a piece in the Medrash Rabbah that involves 3 different psukim from 3 very different places in Tanakh. The first pasuk comes from Akedas Yitzchak, and it's specifically in Parshas Vayera, Perek Chaf Beis, pasuk Dalid, and it says, Bayom Hashlishi, it was on the 3rd day, Vayisa Avraham es Einav, and Avraham lifted his eyes, Vayares Hamakom Merachok, and he saw the place from a distance, from afar. And the place, of course, was Har HaMoriah, where he was heading, where he was instructed by Hashem to carry out the Akedas Yitzchak. So that's the first pasuk regarding Avram Avinu and the Akedas Yitzchak. The second pasuk comes from Parshas Yisro, and specifically Sefer Shmos, Perek Yud Tes, pasuk Tes Zayin. And it's a reference to Bnei Yisrael coming to Har Sinai and preparing, Hashem telling Moshe to prepare the people to receive to be ready for the appearance of Hashem on Har Sinai. So the pasuk says, Vayihi Vayom Hashlishi, and it was on the 3rd day. Vihiyot Haboker, it was in the morning. Vayihi kolos uvrokim va'anon kaved al hahar, and there was thunder and lightning and a very thick cloud on the mountain. V'kol shofar chazak me'od, and a very strong sound of the shofar. Vayecherad kol ha'am asher b'machaneh, and all of the people in the camp were trembling. The second pasuk that we're taking a look at, and now the third pasuk actually from Megillas Esther, and this pasuk is in Perek Hey, pasuk Aleph, and the pasuk says this is in reference to where Esther needed to go. Mordechai told her she had to go talk to Achashverosh in an effort to save the Jewish people from Haman's evil plot, and the situation was, as we all know, of course, that you couldn't just show up to the king unannounced and uninvited, and that would be to put for Esther to do that would be to put her life in danger. So she fasted for 3 days, and she asked Mordechai to have the Jewish people fast and to daven for her. And then the pasuk says, Vayihi Bayom Hashlishi, and it was on the 3rd day, Vatilbash Esther Malchus, Esther donned royalty, Vata'amod b'chotzar beis hamelech hapnimis, and she stood in the entrance to the inner courtyard of the king, nochach beis hamelech, facing the house of the king, ve'hamelech yoshev al kisei malchuso, and the king was sitting on his throne, ve'veis hamalchus nochach pesach haboyos, in the palace, facing the doorway to the palace. So, of course, the Zera Shimshon wants us to notice with these 3 psukim that there's a common denominator, which is Bayom HaShlishi, the 3rd day. Each of them uses the expression on the 3rd day, and we're going to get into the Zera Shimshon right now to see the significance of that and how these psukim are possibly connected. Os Tes, section 9. Medrash. It states in the Medrash of Bereshis Rabbah, Medrash Rabbah and Bereshis, Al Pasuk, on the Pasuk, Bayom HaShlishi Vayisa Avraham es Einav. On the 3rd day, Avraham lifted his eyes, and we just read this pasuk. It's talking about the Akedah and Avraham first seeing Har HaMoriah from a distance. Hadohu dichsiv. So the Medrash says this is a reference to what is written Bayom Hashlishi Vatilbash Esther Malchus. And it was on the third day that Esther donned royalty. Esther put on royal clothing. Be'ezus chus. In what merit was Esther able to come before the king in such a delicate, sensitive, dangerous situation and be successful and be successfully received by the king? The Medrash Rabbah says, Be'ezus chus. And what special merit did she have that this worked out? Rabbanan Amre, the Rabbanan said, B'schus Yom Hashlishi Shel Matan Torah, in the merit of the third day, which is written regarding Matan Torah, and that the merit of the experience of Bnei Yisrael and Matan Torah, and that Yom Hashlishi, that third day, that pasuk we saw from Parshas Yisro, that was the merit that allowed Esther to be successful in coming to appear before Achashverosh. Dichsiv, as the pasuk says, Vayihi bayom hashlishi b'hiyos haboker. It was on the third day in the morning, and of course that's the pasuk the second pasuk that we saw. But Rabbi Levi Omar, and Rabbi Levi says, B'schuso shel yom hashlishi shel Avraham. It was in the merit of the third day that is used when we're talking about Avram in the Akedah. Dichsiv, as it's written, Vayom Hashlishi, on the third day, Vayisa Avraham es Einav, and Avraham lifted his eyes, Ad Kan Lashono, until here is a quote from the Medrash Rabbah on Bereshis. So we see that there seems to be a machlokes about which of the two psukim we should connect. According to the Rabbanan, we're going to connect the Bayom Hashlishi regarding Esther when she appears in front of Achashverosh, puts her life on the line to save the Jewish people, and she is received by Achashverosh. That pasuk, the Rabbanan say, connected to the Yom Hashlishi, to the Bayom Hashlishi of Matan Torah, of Har Sinai, and the connection is that in the Zechus of the Yom Hashlishi of Matan Torah and the Har Sinai experience, Esther was received by Achashverosh and was successful in her mission. That's what the Rabbanan say. And Rabbi Levi appears to disagree, and he says there is a connection here. There's two psukim to connect, but it's a different connection. Rabbi Levi says connect the pasuk of Esther Bayom Hashlishi and connect it with the pasuk of Bayom Hashlishi regarding Avram Avinu and the Akedah. So we seem to apparently have a machlokes. Are we connecting Esther, the story of Esther, and the Matan Torah experience, or the Akedah? Good, that's the Medrash Rabbah. So the Zera Shimshon says, Kosher, there's a problem. Mahu svaraso Rabbi Levi lachlok im Rabbanan. What was Rabbi Levi's thought process? What was his reasoning that caused him to disagree and to argue with the Rabbanan? V'halos chus haTorah hu schusa derabin. The merit of the Har Sinai experience is a merit that's connected to the entire Jewish people. Ubevadai dehu choshev Yoser b'schuso shel Avraham. Certainly, it would seem that it is a more important merit than the one of Avram Avinu. We know, of course, that Avram had his 10 tests, his nisyonos, and how important it was, how that he passed each one of them with flying colors, and the Akedah was the ultimate test for Avram Avinu. But ultimately, the Zera Shimshon says Avram Avinu is an individual, whereas Matan Torah and the Klal Yisrael at Har Sinai, this is Zechus Derabim, as he says. This is a merit for the entire Jewish people, and certainly that's more powerful. So why would Rabbi Levi ever disagree with the Rabbanan and say, no, it's not Matan Torah, the schus of Matan Torah, it's the schus of Avram Avinu and walk in on his journey to the Akedah? That's the question that he asks. V'tiret hayofet Toar, and the Zera Shimshon brings down the Yofet Toar, who answers, Rabbi Levi rotza lilmod zeh mi b'yom hashlishi shel Avraham, that Rabbi Levi preferred to learn out and to connect the Esther story to the Bayom Hashlishi used by Avraham, lefi shekodem baTorah leBayom Hashlishi shel Matan Torah, because the story about Avram Avinu and the Akedah, of course, comes before. It precedes the story of Bnei Yisrael at Har Sinai. And that's why Rabbi Levi said, I want to go with that pasuk. I want to use the pasuk that comes earlier in the Torah and connect that to Esther, as opposed to using a later pasuk about Har Sinai and connecting that. V'zeh hatiritz eino maspik. And the Zera Shimshon says that answer is not sufficient. There has to be more to it, which of course leads to the Zera Shimshon providing his own answer and filling in the gaps, and that's coming up in the next paragraph. V'nira lomar sheRebbi Levi lo ba lachlok. We can say that Rabbi Levi is not actually coming to argue on the Rabbanan, ela letaretz, but to provide an answer. Masheyesh lahakshos al milsaihu de Rabbanan. What there is to ask on the view of the Rabbanan. So the Zera Shimshon says we will be misunderstanding the Medrash Rabbah if we take it at face value and think there's a machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Levi, because actually Rabbi Levi is coming to explain, to amplify, and to help us understand better, to clarify the view of the Rabbanan. Shema she'amru heim bischus yom hashlishi shel Shomatan Torah, because when the Rabbanan connected the Esther story of appearing before Achashverosh on the third day to the third day that is mentioned regarding Har Sinai, Koshe, this is difficult. Demazchus hu zeh liYisrael, because what merit is being mentioned in the pasuk about the third day when we talk about Har Sinai? Shahare zeha pasuk eno medaber. This pasuk is not talking about Ella shebayom hashlishi hayu kolos uvrakim. The pasuk talks about the thunder and the lightning and the powerful sound of the shofar. It talks about all of these things that happened on the third day, v'chule, etc. V'chol zeh hayemasa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'lo shel Yisrael. And these things mentioned in that pasuk are all things done by Hashem. There's nothing in that pasuk that the Rabbanan quoted that has to do with Klal Yisrael doing anything. Klal Yisrael was experiencing something. Klal Yisrael was witnessing momentous events, but the events were done by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ubishlama im haya omer b'schus. It would have made sense if the Rabbanan would have said, it's in the merit of a different pasuk, a few psukim earlier. V'hayu nechonim layom hashlishi. They, the Klal Yisrael, should be prepared on the third day. Nicha, that would have been good. That would have made sense to use that pasuk. Shahaya mashma, because it would have taught us b'schus shehichinu atzmam lekach, that it's the merit of Klal Yisrael preparing so meticulously for the Har Sinai experience. That was the schus that allowed Esther to appear before Achashverosh and be accepted and received by him. That would have made sense. Aval zeba yom hashlishi, but this pasuk that the Rabbanon actually used, eino mare shum schus liYisrael. It doesn't demonstrate any particular schus for actions taken by Klal Yisrael. Umay tamayhu de Rabbanon, and therefore there's an open question. What is the reasoning of the Rabbanan to quote a pasuk that talks about the momentous, earth-shattering things that Hashem did, but doesn't seem to mention anything that would lead us to believe there's a special schus for Klal Yisrael that could support Esther in her time of need? So that's the question the Zera Shimshon says we need to focus on. V'lochein, next paragraph, V'lochein ba Rabbi Levi l'taretz. And that question is what Rabbi Levi is actually coming to answer. He's not coming to argue, according to the Zera Shimshon. He's coming to support the Rabbanan and answer the question that is asked against their view. Bizchuso shel yom hashlishi shel Avraham. And Rabbi Levi says it's in the merit of the third day mentioned by Avram Avinu. Klomar, which this is what he means to say. Lama zachu Yisrael. Why did Bnei Yisrael merit? That the Shechina should come early and appear on the morning of the third day. Bischuso shel yom hashlishi shel Avraham. That's what Levi says. That was in the merit of Avraham's third day. Dichsiv Bey, because it's written regarding Avraham in the Akedah, Vayash came Avraham baboker. Avraham arose early in the morning to leave on the journey to go with Yitzchak to the Akedah, the Har HaMoriah. Shenizdares lemitzvahs boro, because he wanted to hurry to do the mitzvah of his creator, the commandment of his creator. V'hashtanicha, and now it makes sense. De lo pligi klal Rabbi Levi v'Rabbanan, because there is not actually a machlokes between Rabbi Levi and the Rabbanan in the Medrash Rabbah. Ela Rabbi Levi bo lefaresh divrayim. Rabbi Levi is coming to explain the words of the Rabbanan. Ve'in hachinami sheschus yom hashlishi shel matan Torah goram leEsther. And Rabbi Levi would concede and agree that yes, it is the schus of matan Torah that caused Esther to be successful, shetimtza chen, that she found favor, be'enei hamelech, in the eyes of Achashverosh the king. V'zeh shel matan Torah. But the schus of matan Torah that helped Esther, that whole experience and the way it happened and when it happened, bo machmas oso shel Avraham. That is what Rabbi Levi was connecting to the merit of Avram Avinu, getting up in the morning and leaving on his journey, hurrying on his journey, not wasting a moment, but hurrying on his journey to the Akedah to carry out Hashem's will. V'nicha shapir, the last paragraph, v'nicha shapir lishnei de Rabbi Levi, and Rabbi Levi's language is carefully chosen. Dilo omar b'schus yom hashlishi shel Avraham. He didn't say that Esther's success was in the merit of the third day, that phrase that's used by Avraham, Kimosha Amru Rabbanan, as the rabbis, as Rabbanan said, b'schus yom hashlishi shel matan Torah, when they connected Esther's success to the words Yom HaShlishi regarding Matan Torah. Rabbi Levi didn't say the same exact thing. Elashane b'dibure, but he changed his words slightly. V'amar, and he said, Bizchuso shel Yom HaShlishi shel Avraham. In its merit, the merit of Avram Avinu, dehainu, which means Matan Torah, that Rabbi Levi was saying, I'm not connecting Esther's experience to Avram Avinu, I'm connecting the Matan Torah experience to Avram Avinu. And I'm saying that Yom HaShlishi of Matan Torah, bo al yedei Yom HaShlishi acher. It comes through a previous Yom HaShlishi, a different expression of Yom HaShlishi, shel Avraham, regarding Avram Avinu. Shenizdares lemitzvahs boro, who hurried as quickly as he could to fulfill the command of his creator. V'chol hazrizus, and this, anytime we have the idea of zrizus, of hurrying to do a mitzvah, of running to do a mitzvah, anu lomdim oso me Avraham. That is what we learn from Avraham. And in the merit of what Avraham did by the Akedah, Hashem came early on the third day to welcome, so to speak, Moshe and Klal Yisrael to Har Sinai, and to bring about the events, the momentous events of that day. So just to quickly recap, the Zera Shimshon has focused on a pasuk by Esther from Megillas Esther regarding Bayom, that uses the phrase Bayom HaShlishi, on the third day when Esther came to put her life on the line for the Jewish people and appear before Achashverosh, and he brought in a Medrash Rabbah, which seemed to indicate that the particular schus that Esther had that saved her and helped her and supported her at that moment seemed to be a machlokes. Was it connected to the words Yom HaShlishi by Avram Avinu in the Akedah, or the Yom HaShlishi by Matan Torah? And the Zera Shimshon was machadesh for us that actually there is no machlokes, there is no argument. Rabbi Levi is actually coming to support and clarify the view of the Rabbanan, and that's why he brought in the story, the pasuk of Avram Avinu by Yom HaShlishi, because that is what led to the Matan Torah, the specific timing of Matan Torah, and then it's Matan Torah that is connected to the zechus that Esther had in her mission that it says by Yom HaShlishi in Megillas Esther.